The snow-capped peaks of the Alps stretched endlessly, their pristine beauty glowing under the soft hues of the setting sun. Nestled in the heart of this breathtaking landscape was the Alpine Summit Resort, a luxurious retreat reserved for the world's most influential minds. This year, the resort was hosting the Global Business Leaders Conference, a prestigious event where the brightest entrepreneurs, CEOs, and visionaries gathered to shape the future of their industries. Among the attendees was Olivia Brooks, a 29-year-old entrepreneur and founder of EcoVibe, a sustainable fashion startup that had been making waves in the industry. For Olivia, this conference wasn't just another networking event. It was her chance to secure the funding she desperately needed to expand her brand internationally. On the other side of the spectrum was Damon Archer, a 36-year-old CEO of Archer Media Group, a global advertising empire. Known for his sharp business acumen and unyielding demeanor, Damon was a man who commanded respect wherever he went. But behind his polished exterior lay the weight of family expectations and the relentless pressure to maintain his company's dominance. As the guests arrived, the resort buzzed with excitement. Deals worth millions were being discussed over glasses of champagne, and the air was thick with ambition. But for Olivia and Damon, their paths were about to cross in the most unexpected way. What happens when two ambitious individuals, each with their own dreams and struggles, are forced to share a space? Will their differences drive them apart? Or will this chance encounter change their lives forever? Stay tuned as we unravel a story of rivalry, ambition, and an unexpected connection that defies all odds. Olivia Brooks was no stranger to hard work. Growing up in a modest household, she had always dreamed of creating something meaningful. Her startup, EcoVibe, was her way of combining her passion for fashion with her commitment to sustainability. Despite her success in launching the brand, Olivia knew that breaking into the international market required more than just talent. It required capital, connections, and a bit of luck. Dressed in a sleek yet understated outfit, Olivia exuded confidence as she stepped into the resort's grand lobby. But beneath her composed exterior, she couldn't shake the nerves. This conference was her chance to pitch her vision to investors who could make or break her dreams. Meanwhile, Damon Archer arrived in his usual style, sharp suit, polished shoes, and an air of authority that turned heads. As the CEO of Archer Media Group, Damon had built his company into a global powerhouse. But his success came at a cost. The weight of his family's legacy bore heavily on his shoulders, leaving little room for personal connections. The Alpine Summit Resort was the perfect backdrop for their contrasting worlds. The opulent chandeliers, roaring fireplaces, and panoramic views of the mountains created an atmosphere of both luxury and intensity. It was a place where deals were sealed with a handshake, and every conversation carried the potential to change lives. As Olivia checked in at the front desk, she couldn't help but notice the whispers around her. Damon Archer's presence was hard to ignore. His reputation as a ruthless negotiator preceded him, and Olivia had no intention of crossing paths with him. Olivia's brows furrowed as the receptionist explained the situation. Due to a last-minute error, we're fully booked. The only available option is to share a suite with another guest. Share a room? Olivia's voice was calm, but her frustration was evident. She had meticulously planned every detail of this trip, and this was not part of the plan. I assure you the suite is spacious, and your roommate is also attending the conference, the receptionist added, trying to ease the tension. Before Olivia could protest further, a deep, familiar voice interrupted. Is there a problem here? She turned to see Damon Archer standing behind her, his piercing gaze fixed on the receptionist. Mr. Archer, the receptionist stammered, it seems you'll be sharing your suite with Miss Brooks. Damon's expression didn't change, but Olivia could sense his annoyance. Perfect, he said dryly, his tone laced with sarcasm. Olivia shot him a glare. Trust me, this isn't ideal for me either. The tension between them was palpable as they made their way to the suite. The room was as luxurious as expected, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a stunning view of the snow-covered peaks. But the grandeur did little to ease the awkwardness. Damon poured himself a glass of wine and settled into a leather armchair by the fireplace. "Looks like we're stuck with each other," he remarked, his tone indifferent. Olivia ignored him, dragging her suitcase to the farthest corner of the room. "This is going to be a long weekend," she muttered under her breath. The suite, though spacious, felt suffocating with the unspoken tension between them. Olivia busied herself unpacking, determined to avoid any unnecessary interaction. Damon, on the other hand, seemed perfectly at ease, his calm demeanor only adding to her irritation. As the evening wore on, the silence between them grew heavier. Olivia couldn't help but wonder how she was going to survive the next few days, sharing a space with someone who seemed to embody everything she disliked: arrogance, entitlement, and an infuriating sense of control. But little did she know, this forced proximity would soon reveal sides of Damon she never expected to see. The grand conference hall was alive with energy the next morning. Attendees in tailored suits and designer dresses mingled over coffee, their conversations buzzing with ambition and opportunity. Olivia, dressed in a sharp emerald green blazer, exuded confidence as she navigated the room. This was her moment to shine, and she wasn't going to let anything or anyone distract her. Across the hall, Damon Archer commanded attention effortlessly. His presence was magnetic, and people naturally gravitated toward him. Olivia couldn't help but notice the way he moved through the crowd, his every word calculated, his every gesture deliberate. Their first encounter of the day came during a panel discussion. Olivia had been invited to speak about the future of sustainable business practices, while Damon was there to discuss the role of media in shaping consumer behavior. As Olivia presented her vision for EcoVibe, she spoke with passion and conviction. Sustainability isn't just a trend, it's a necessity. Consumers are demanding more transparency, and businesses that fail to adapt will be left behind. The audience nodded in agreement, clearly impressed. But as Olivia finished, Damon leaned forward, his expression calm but challenging. Brooks," he began, his voice smooth and authoritative, "while I admire your passion, don't you think the market for sustainable fashion is still too niche to make a significant impact on a global scale?" Olivia turned to face him, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Mr. Archer, with all due respect, that's the kind of thinking that keeps industries stagnant. The market isn't niche, it's growing. And the companies that recognize that growth now will be the ones leading the future." A murmur of approval rippled through the audience. Damon's lips curved into a faint smile, but Olivia could see the challenge in his eyes. The rest of the panel discussion felt like a chess match between the two of them. Damon's arguments were sharp and strategic, but Olivia countered with equal precision, her words fueled by her unwavering belief in her mission. By the end of the session, their rivalry had become the talk of the conference. Attendees whispered about the tension between them, some even speculating that it was more than just professional. Later that day, Olivia found herself at a networking event, surrounded by potential investors. She was in the middle of pitching her vision when Damon appeared, his presence as commanding as ever. "Ms. Brooks," he said smoothly, interrupting her conversation, "I couldn't help but overhear. You make a compelling case for your brand." Olivia forced a polite smile, though her irritation was evident. "Thank you, Mr. Archer. I'm sure you have plenty of your own deals to focus on." Damon chuckled, his tone teasing. "True, but I find your approach refreshing. It's not every day I meet someone who's willing to challenge me." Olivia raised an eyebrow, her voice steady. "I'm not here to challenge you, Mr. Archer. I'm here to build something meaningful." For a moment, Damon said nothing, his gaze lingering on her. "Fair enough," he said finally, his tone softer. "But don't underestimate the value of a good rival. It keeps things interesting." As he walked away, Olivia couldn't help but feel a mix of frustration and intrigue. Damon Archer was infuriating, but there was something about him that she couldn't quite ignore. The suite was quiet that evening, save for the soft crackling of the fireplace. Olivia sat at the desk, her laptop open, reviewing her notes for the next day's pitch. She tried to focus, but the weight of the day's events lingered in her mind. Damon's calm yet sharp rebuttals during the panel discussion had both irritated and impressed her. Across the room, Damon leaned back in the leather armchair, a glass of wine in hand. He watched Olivia from the corner of his eye, her focused expression illuminated by the warm glow of the fire. For a moment he considered saying nothing, but the silence between them felt heavier than usual. "You were bold today," Damon said, breaking the quiet. Olivia glanced up, her fingers pausing on the keyboard. "Bold or reckless?" Damon smirked, swirling the wine in his glass. "Bold. Most people wouldn't dare challenge me in a room like that." Olivia leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "I wasn't trying to challenge you, I was pointing out a flaw in your strategy. There's a difference." Damon raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "And what makes you so sure it's a flaw?" "Because I've seen it before," Olivia replied, her voice steady. "Big campaigns that look perfect on paper but fail to connect with real people. Authenticity matters, Damon. People can see through the facade." For a moment, Damon said nothing. He studied her, his usual guarded expression softening slightly. "You're different," he said finally. Olivia frowned. "Different how?" "You don't just talk about ideas, you believe in them. It's rare," Damon admitted, his tone quieter now. Olivia hesitated, unsure how to respond. She wasn't used to hearing sincerity from someone like Damon Archer. "I've had to believe in them," she said eventually. "When you start with nothing, belief is all you have." Damon's gaze darkened, and for the first time, Olivia saw something beyond his polished exterior. "I know what it's like to carry the weight of expectations," he said, his voice low. "To feel like no matter what you achieve, it's never enough." Olivia's defenses softened. "Is that why you're always so distant?" Damon chuckled softly, though there was no humor in it. "Maybe, or maybe it's just easier that way." The room fell silent again, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable. It was as if, for a brief moment, they had let their walls down, allowing each other a glimpse of the vulnerabilities they both worked so hard to hide. Olivia stood and walked toward the fireplace, her arms wrapped around herself. "You know, I didn't expect this trip to turn into whatever this is." Damon joined her, standing a few feet away. "Neither did I," he admitted. Their eyes met, and for the first time, there was no rivalry, no pretense, just two people, each carrying their own burdens, finding an unexpected connection. The moment lingered, the firelight casting soft shadows across their faces. Damon reached out, hesitating for a second before gently tucking a loose strand of hair behind Olivia's ear. "Olivia," he said softly, his voice almost a whisper. She didn't pull away. Instead, she stepped closer, her heart pounding as the space between them disappeared. And then, as if drawn by an invisible force, their lips met. The kiss was tentative at first, but it quickly deepened, filled with all the unspoken emotions they had been holding back. For that one night, the world outside their suite faded away. There were no investors, no expectations, no rivalries, just Olivia and Damon, two souls finding solace in each other. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the thick curtains, casting a soft glow over the suite. Olivia stirred, her mind still hazy from the night before. As the memories came flooding back, Damon's touch, his whispered words, her heart raced. "What have I done?" She sat up carefully, pulling the sheets around her. Across the room, Damon was still asleep, his usually stern features relaxed in the morning light. For a moment, Olivia allowed herself to admire him, but the weight of reality quickly settled in. This wasn't supposed to happen. Quietly, she slipped out of bed, gathering her clothes and retreating to the bathroom. As she stared at her reflection in the mirror, a mix of emotions swirled within her, confusion, guilt, and something she couldn't quite name. By the time she emerged, dressed and composed, Damon was awake, leaning against the headboard with a calm expression. "Good morning," he said, his voice low and steady. Olivia hesitated, unsure how to respond. "Morning," she replied curtly, avoiding his gaze as she busied herself with her bag. Damon watched her for a moment before speaking again. "Olivia, about last night." "Let's not," she interrupted, her tone sharper than she intended. "It was a mistake. We were tired and emotions got the better of us. It doesn't mean anything." Damon's jaw tightened, but he nodded slowly. "If that's how you feel." "It is," Olivia said firmly, though the words felt hollow. The tension between them was palpable as they left the suite and headed to the conference. Olivia tried to focus on her goals, but the memory of Damon's touch lingered, distracting her at every turn. By mid-morning, the whispers began. "Did you hear about Olivia Brooks and Damon Archer? I saw them leaving the suite together this morning. Do you think she's trying to use him to get funding?" The rumors spread like wildfire, fueled by the competitive nature of the conference. Olivia could feel the stares, the judgment in every glance. She tried to brush it off, but the weight of the gossip was suffocating. During a break, one of the investors she had been courting approached her. "Miss Brooks, I've been hearing some concerning things. I hope you understand that professionalism is key in this industry." Olivia's stomach dropped. "Of course. I assure you, whatever you've heard is just speculation." The investor gave her a tight smile. "I hope so. Your work is impressive, but reputation matters." As the day wore on, Olivia's frustration grew. She had worked so hard to build her brand, to prove herself, and now it felt like everything was slipping through her fingers because of one night. Meanwhile, Damon faced his own challenges. His board of directors had caught wind of the rumors, and they weren't pleased. "Damon, this kind of attention is bad for the company," one of them said during a tense phone call. "We can't afford to have your personal life overshadow our business." Damon clenched his jaw, his frustration evident. "It's nothing, just gossip, it'll blow over." "It better," the voice on the other end warned. By the end of the day, Olivia and Damon found themselves back in the suite, the weight of the day's events hanging heavily between them. "This is a disaster," Olivia said, pacing the room. "I've worked so hard to get here, and now all anyone sees is this." Damon leaned against the wall, his arms crossed. "You think I don't understand? My board is breathing down my neck because of this." Olivia stopped, turning to face him. "Then maybe we should have been more careful." Damon's eyes narrowed. "Careful? You think I planned for this to happen? You think I wanted to jeopardize everything I've built?" "I don't know what you wanted, Damon," Olivia shot back, her voice rising. "But I know what I wanted. To be taken seriously, and now, thanks to this, I'm just another woman people think slept her way to the top." The words hung in the air, cutting through the tension like a knife. Damon's expression softened, and for a moment he looked almost hurt. "Is that what you think of me?" he asked quietly. Olivia hesitated, her anger fading as she saw the vulnerability in his eyes. No," she admitted, her voice softer now. "I don't. But it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what they think." Damon stepped closer, his voice firm but gentle. "Then let's show them they're wrong. Let's prove that we're more than the rumors." Olivia looked up at him, her resolve wavering. "How?" "We do what we came here to do," Damon said. "You pitch your vision, I close my deals, and we remind everyone why we're here in the first place." For the first time that day, Olivia felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could turn this around. The next morning, Olivia stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her blazer. Her reflection stared back at her, a mix of determination and nerves. Today was the day she would pitch her vision for EcoVibe to a room full of investors. The rumors swirling around her and Damon had cast a shadow over her reputation, but she wasn't about to let that define her. Across the suite, Damon was already dressed, his usual calm demeanor masking the pressure he was under. He glanced at Olivia as she gathered her notes. "You ready for this?" he asked. She met his gaze in the mirror. "I don't have a choice." Damon stepped closer, his voice steady. "You do. You can let them win, or you can show them why you're here." Olivia took a deep breath, his words sinking in. I'm not letting them win. Good, Damon said with a faint smile, because neither am I. The conference hall was packed, the air buzzing with anticipation. Olivia's name was announced, and she walked onto the stage, her heels clicking against the polished floor. She could feel the weight of the audience's eyes on her, some curious, others skeptical. But as she began to speak, all the doubts faded away. Ecovibe isn't just a brand, Olivia said, her voice clear and confident. It's a movement, a commitment to creating sustainable, ethical fashion that doesn't compromise on style or quality. We're not just selling clothes, we're selling a vision for a better future. She outlined her business model, her plans for expansion, and the growing demand for sustainable products. Her passion was palpable, and by the time she finished, the room erupted into applause. As Olivia stepped off the stage, she caught Damon's eye from across the room. He gave her a small nod, a silent acknowledgement of her success. But the day wasn't over yet. Later that afternoon, it was Damon's turn to take the stage. His presentation was polished and precise, as expected, but there was something different about him this time. He spoke with a sincerity that surprised even himself, weaving in personal anecdotes about the challenges of building his empire and the lessons he'd learned along the way. When he finished, the applause was thunderous. As Damon stepped off the stage, he was immediately surrounded by investors and executives eager to speak with him, but his eyes searched the crowd until they landed on Olivia. That evening, the conference hosted a gala dinner, a chance for attendees to network and celebrate their successes. Olivia stood by the bar, a glass of champagne in hand, when Damon approached her. "You were incredible today," he said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. Olivia turned to him, a small smile playing on her lips. "So were you." For a moment, they stood in silence, the noise of the gala fading into the background. "Do you think it's over?" Olivia asked finally. "The rumors?" Damon shook his head. "Not yet. But today, you reminded everyone why you're here, and that's what matters." Olivia nodded, her confidence slowly returning. "I couldn't have done it without you." Damon raised an eyebrow, a teasing smile tugging at his lips. "Is that your way of saying thank you?" "Don't push your luck," Olivia replied, though her tone was light. As the night wore on, the tension between them began to ease. They laughed, shared stories, and for the first time allowed themselves to enjoy each other's company without the weight of expectations or judgment. But as the evening drew to a close, reality crept back in. The next morning, Olivia and Damon sat across from each other in the suite, their bags packed and ready to go. "So," Damon began, breaking the silence. "What happens now?" Olivia hesitated, her gaze dropping to her hands. "I don't know. We go back to our lives, I guess." "And this?" Damon gestured between them. Olivia looked up, her expression conflicted. "This was unexpected, but I can't afford any more distractions, Damon. I've worked too hard to get here." Damon nodded slowly, though there was a flicker of disappointment in his eyes. "I get it. But, for what it's worth, I don't think this was a distraction. I think it was the start of something." Olivia's heart ached at his words, but she forced herself to stay composed. "Maybe, but right now I need to focus on my future." Damon stood, his usual confidence tempered by a rare vulnerability. "Then I hope your future is everything you want it to be." As they left the suite and went their separate ways, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that she was leaving something important behind. The city skyline stretched endlessly before Olivia as she sat in her office, the hum of activity outside her door a constant reminder of the fast-paced world she had fought so hard to be part of. It had been 2 weeks since the conference, and life had returned to its usual rhythm. Or at least, it should have. Her pitch at the conference had been a resounding success. Investors were reaching out, partnerships were forming, and Ecovibe was finally gaining the momentum she had dreamed of. On paper, everything was perfect. But late at night, when the world quieted, her thoughts drifted back to Damon. She had told herself that leaving him behind was the right decision. They were from different worlds with different goals, and any relationship between them would have been complicated at best. But no matter how much she tried to focus on her work, she couldn't forget the way he had looked at her, the way he had believed in her when she doubted herself. Across the city, Damon sat in his corner office, the lights of the bustling streets below casting long shadows across the room. His presentation at the conference had solidified his position as one of the most influential CEOs in the industry. His board was pleased, his deals were closing, and Caldwell Enterprises was thriving. But none of it felt as satisfying as it should have. He had spent years building walls around himself, keeping people at a distance, to protect his focus and his reputation. Yet in just a few days, Olivia Brooks had managed to break through those walls. She had challenged him, inspired him, and made him feel something he hadn't felt in a long time. Damon leaned back in his chair, his mind replaying their last conversation. He had told her he understood her decision, but the truth was, he didn't. He couldn't shake the feeling that they had let something important slip away. Underscore, 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 underscore. Physical abnormalities. Known abnormalities reveal that painful external sensations are external outside of you, not internal. A chance encounter. A month later, Olivia found herself at a charity gala in the heart of the city. The event was a who's who of the business world, and she had been invited as a guest speaker to discuss the importance of sustainability in corporate practices. She moved through the crowd with practiced ease, her confidence growing with every conversation. But as she turned toward the bar, her breath caught in her throat. Damon was there. He stood with a group of executives, his presence as commanding as ever. But when his eyes met hers, the rest of the room seemed to fade away. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, as if drawn by an invisible force, Damon excused himself and crossed the room to her. "Olivia," he said, his voice warm but cautious. "Damon," she replied, her heart racing. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. "You look well," Damon said finally, his lips curving into a small smile. "Do you," Olivia replied, her voice softer than she intended. "Echo vibe." "Driving," she said, a hint of pride in her tone. "We just secured a major partnership with a global retailer." "That's incredible," Damon said, and she could see the genuine admiration in his eyes. "I knew you'd make it happen." "And Caldwell Enterprises?" "Busy as ever," Damon said with a shrug, "but it's nothing I can't handle." Olivia smiled, but there was a sadness in her eyes. "It seems like we're both doing exactly what we set out to do." "Yeah," Damon said, his voice quieter now. "But is it everything you thought it would be?" The question caught Olivia off guard. She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. "I don't know," she admitted. "I thought it would feel different." Damon nodded, his expression unreadable. "Me too." The noise of the gala swirled around them, but in that moment, it felt like they were the only two people in the room. "Olivia," Damon began, his voice steady, "I know we said we'd go our separate ways, but I can't stop thinking about you. About us." Olivia's heart ached at his words, but she forced herself to stay composed. "Damon, Just hear me out," he interrupted gently. "I know we're both focused on our careers, and I know it's complicated, but I also know that what we have is rare, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what could have been." Olivia looked up at him, her emotions warring within her. She had spent weeks convincing herself that walking away was the right choice, but now, standing in front of him, she wasn't so sure. "Damon," she said finally, her voice trembling, "I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can balance everything." "You don't have to do it alone," Damon said, his tone firm but gentle. "We can figure it out together." For the first time in weeks, Olivia allowed herself to consider the possibility. Maybe they could find a way to make it work. Maybe they didn't have to choose between their careers and each other. As the music swelled around them, Damon extended his hand. Olivia hesitated for only a moment before placing her hand in his, and as they moved together on the dance floor, the rest of the world faded away once more. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more captivating tales, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. This is Emma, and you're watching Emma's Stories, where every story has a heart. See you in the next one.